lights burn bright in the studio, the audience murmuring with anticipation. Clint Eastwood sits across from the host, calm but unreadable. He's been here before, facing down smug, self-righteous critics who think they can corner him. But tonight is different. Tonight, they aren't just going after his politics or his movies, they're going after his family. The host leans in, a smirk, tugging at the corners of his mouth. The setup is obvious. The question is bait, meant to rattle Eastwood, to push him into a defensive corner where they can mock him in front of millions. "Clint," the host begins, voice dripping with condescension. "A lot of people are wondering, how does your wife really feel about your outdated views on masculinity?" The audience gasps, some in shock, others in amusement. The trap is set. The host expects hesitation, a fumble, maybe even anger. But what he doesn't expect is Clint Eastwood doing what he does best, delivering a response so cold, so cutting, that the entire room is left speechless. Before we get into today's story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Now let's get started. The network had been planning this for weeks. Behind the scenes, producers and executives huddled together, carefully crafting a strategy to corner Clint Eastwood. They knew his reputation. A Hollywood icon, a man who built his career on grit, independence, and unshakable principles. He wasn't someone who played by their rules, and that made him dangerous. To them, he was a relic of a time they wanted to erase, a symbol of masculinity they deemed outdated. And worst of all, he didn't apologize for it. So they set the stage for a takedown. The producers carefully selected their host, a smug, fast-talking media figure known for cornering guests and twisting their words. The audience was stacked with hand-picked attendees who were instructed to react a certain way, laugh when the host landed a punch, scoff at Eastwood's responses, turn the crowd into a weapon. The goal wasn't a debate. It was a public execution. The pre-show briefings were another calculated move. Eastwood was invited under the guise of a respectful discussion about his career and views on filmmaking. But behind closed doors, the host had different instructions. Make him look out of touch, the producers urged. Make him stumble. Get him emotional. If we hit the right nerve, he'll crack. They had done it before, ambushing public figures, twisting the narrative, cutting out key responses in post-production. This wasn't just an interview, it was a trap. And then, the final touch, the personal angle. They knew that attacking his career or his political views wouldn't be enough. He had heard it all before. But his family, his wife, that was the pressure point they needed. If they could make him squirm, make him hesitate for even a second, they could control the headlines. They could run the clips out of context, frame him as a man who was either too bitter to respond or too weak to defend himself. As Clint Eastwood walked onto the set, the pieces were already in place. The cameras, the lighting, the carefully orchestrated energy of the room. It was all designed for one purpose, to destroy him. But what the network didn't realize was that they weren't dealing with just any celebrity. They were dealing with Clint Eastwood, and they had just made a fatal mistake. The moment the interview starts, the host wastes no time tightening the noose. The usual pleasantries are skipped. No talk of Clint's legendary career, no respectful nod to his impact on cinema. Just a smug grin and a sharp pivot, straight into the ambush. "So, Clint," the host says, crossing his legs and leaning forward, as if sharing a private joke with the audience. "You've always played these tough, no-nonsense guys on screen, but in real life, do you think your views on masculinity are a little outdated?" The crowd chuckles, right on cue. A few murmurs ripple through the audience, and the energy in the room shifts. This isn't a discussion. It's a setup. Clint doesn't flinch. He's been in this business long enough to know when someone is trying to bait him. "Well," he starts, his voice calm, measured. But the host cuts him off, his smirk widening. "I mean, come on," he interrupts, waving a dismissive hand. "Your whole persona, your movies, it's all about that old-school tough guy attitude. Do you ever wonder if maybe the world has moved past that?" The audience laughs louder now, emboldened. The host sits back, basking in the moment. This is what they came for, a show. Clint rests his hands on his lap, unfazed. "I don't think—" Another interruption. "Because honestly," the host continues, voice dripping with condescension, "when people hear you talk about traditional values, they wonder, what does your wife think? Does she just smile and nod? Or is she rolling her eyes behind your back?" A mix of gasps and laughter erupts from the audience. Someone whistles. The host grins, sensing victory. He's just made it personal. That's what they wanted. A reaction, a flinch, anything they could twist into a viral soundbite. Clint's expression remains unreadable. A lesser man would have snapped. But he doesn't take the bait. "I don't think my wife needs you speaking for her," Clint says smoothly. But the host barely lets him finish. Of course," the host says quickly, cutting him off again. "It's just, times are changing, and a lot of people feel like men like you. Well, let's just say, there's a reason Hollywood doesn't make movies like yours anymore." Another laugh, another reaction from the audience. They aren't here for an answer. They're here for a takedown. Clint shifts in his seat slightly, adjusting his jacket. The host thinks it's a sign of discomfort, a mistake. Because Clint isn't uncomfortable. He's just waiting. The host leans in for the kill. "So let's just be honest here. Do you ever feel like maybe, just maybe, the world has outgrown Clint Eastwood?" The crowd is hushed for a beat. It's the final push, the dagger meant to end the fight before it even begins. They think they've won. But what happens next? No one saw coming. For a moment, Clint Eastwood simply stares at the host. The silence stretches. The audience waits, expecting a stammer, a flustered defense, anything that would confirm the host's narrative. But Clint doesn't blink. Instead, he leans back, completely relaxed, and then he chuckles. A low, gravelly sound that immediately shifts the energy in the room. The host's smirk falters for just a second. He wasn't expecting that. Clint finally says, his voice even, deliberate. "I've been around a long time, long enough to know a setup when I see one." The audience murmurs. Some laugh, not at Clint, but with him. The host scoffs, shaking his head. "Oh, come on, Clint. It's just a discussion." "No," Clint interrupts, and this time, it's him cutting the host off. "It's not. You didn't invite me here for a discussion. You invited me here for a show." The room tenses. The host tries to laugh, but it sounds forced. Clint raises a hand slightly, commanding, controlled. "Let me finish." The audience is shifting now. The power dynamic is changing. People are leaning forward, waiting. The host, who had been so smug just moments ago, suddenly looks smaller in his chair. "You say the world has outgrown men like me?" Clint continues, his gaze steady. "That's funny, because I look around and I see a world that's more lost than ever, more divided, more confused. And you sit there laughing about it like that's some kind of progress?" The murmurs in the audience grow louder. The cameras are rolling. Something is happening. The host forces a grin. "Clint, let's not turn this into—" Clint cuts him off again. "You want to talk about my wife?" He shakes his head. "Son, let me give you some advice. A man who has to bring up another man's wife to win an argument is a man who's already lost." The audience erupts. Cheers, applause, even whistles. The host's expression tightens. This isn't going how he planned. "That's not what I was trying to do," the host says quickly, but now he's the one stumbling. "Oh, I think it was exactly what you were trying to do," Clint fires back. His voice never rises, but the weight behind his words is undeniable. "And if you think men like me are the problem, let me ask you something." He gestures to the audience. "How many of you grew up watching movies where the hero stood for something, where right was right and wrong was wrong?" Hands go up. Applause follows. Clint looks back at the host. "And now you call that outdated? Tell me something. What exactly do you stand for?" The host flounders. I mean, society is evolving, Clint. People have different perspectives now." "So your perspective," Clint says, "is that a man can't have values without being ridiculed." "I never said that." "You implied it." The audience is nodding now. The host is losing them. He realizes it too, so in desperation, he makes a fatal mistake. "You're just upset because people aren't lining up to see your movies anymore." The host snaps, gasps, a visible shift in the room. Clint exhales, then slowly leans forward, and that's when he delivers the knockout punch. "You're right about one thing," he says, his voice quieter now, but somehow more powerful. "People aren't lining up for movies like mine anymore. But you know what? They also aren't lining up for men like you." The crowd loses it. Applause, cheers, laughter. This time, not at Clint, but at the host. The host tries to regain control, stammering something about misinterpretation, but it's too late. Clint Eastwood just turned the ambush into a reckoning. And now, the real fallout begins. Within minutes of the interview airing, the internet erupts. The clip of Clint Eastwood's brutal takedown spreads like wildfire, circulating across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Hashtags explode into the trending list. Schneeklinthounds the host. Stand with Clint. Talk shows are rigged. The internet doesn't just react, it chooses a side. And overwhelmingly, the side isn't with the host. Twitter is ruthless. Clips of Clint's most devastating lines are turned into viral memes. One shows the host's stunned expression as the words, "A man who has to bring up another man's wife to win an argument is a man who's already lost," are stamped over his face in bold white letters. Another cuts Clint's line, "You invited me here for a show," right before a montage of the host squirming, interspersed with clown emojis. YouTube commentary channels tear the host apart. Reaction videos dissect the meltdown frame by frame, analyzing the exact moment he realized he had lost control. The view counts surge into the millions. Some podcasters, particularly those critical of mainstream media, declare it a defining moment in modern television. On Reddit, a post titled, "This is what happens when you try to ambush a legend," skyrockets to the top of our public freakout, garnering thousands of upvotes and comments. Users pile in. The way Clint just smiled at him before wrecking him. Chef's kiss. This is why the old school guys will always have my respect. They don't need to yell, they just let the truth hit like a truck. The host is scrambling like his entire career isn't slipping through his fingers in real time. The fallout reaches the show's sponsors. It starts with whispers, corporate executives, scrambling behind the scenes as the backlash intensifies. Then, it turns into action. Big-name advertisers quietly start pulling their ads from the network. A leaked email reveals that one of the biggest sponsors has concerns over audience sentiment. Translation? They don't want their brand, associated with a host, getting publicly humiliated. The network scrambles. Damage control mode is activated. The host releases a statement, but it only makes things worse. I regret that my words were taken out of context. The interview was meant to be a thought-provoking discussion, not an attack on anyone. Bad move. The internet sees right through it. The comments flood in. Oh, please, you got wrecked on live TV and now you're backpedaling. Taken out of context. Bro, we saw the context. Clint didn't even raise his voice. That's what makes it worse for you. Other celebrities start weighing in. Actors, political commentators, and even retired talk show hosts chime in. Some defend Clint, calling him a rare breed of class and honesty in Hollywood. Others use it as an opportunity to criticize modern media. One high-profile political commentator tweets, "This is why people are done with mainstream media. They don't host interviews. They set up hit jobs." Clint Eastwood showed them what happens when you don't play along. Even those who don't necessarily agree with Clint can't ignore what just happened. The show's credibility is crumbling. The audience it once had, now mocking them. The reputation they tried to uphold, gone. The host tries to regain footing, inviting experts onto later segments to discuss Hollywood's outdated ideals. But it backfires spectacularly. Every new attempt to explain only makes the internet more furious. Then comes the final blow. A leaked recording surfaces a behind-the-scenes clip from the show's producers. In it, they are heard laughing about setting Clint up. One voice, allegedly the host himself, even mocks Clint before the interview, saying, "Oh, he won't even see it coming. We'll get him worked up about his wife, and then we'll pivot to the outdated masculinity angle. Trust me, this'll be gold." That's it. The moment that turns an already disastrous backlash into a full-scale media reckoning. The network is forced to make a decision. The host suddenly goes on leave. The show cancels upcoming episodes. Some insiders whisper that a permanent cancellation is on the table. Meanwhile, Clint Eastwood, untouchable. His name is everywhere, and for all the right reasons. Studios start reconsidering projects that had been shelved. Offers start rolling in. Interviews are requested. But Clint, he doesn't even have to say a word. The moment has already spoken for him. The backlash isn't just social media noise. It's turning into something much bigger. Clint Eastwood isn't the type to let things slide. And this time, he isn't just walking away, he's taking action. Within days of the interview, his legal team moves swiftly. A statement is released to the press. Mr. Eastwood has always valued honest discussions, but when deception is involved, there must be accountability. We are pursuing legal action for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and fraudulent misrepresentation. The media erupts. This isn't just another PR disaster, it's a full-scale lawsuit. The network scrambles, the talk show's legal team goes into overdrive, and suddenly, that smug confidence the host had during the interview, nowhere to be found. Then it gets worse. A whistleblower steps forward. A junior producer, one of the people who worked behind the scenes on the show, leaks damning emails to an independent journalist. These emails confirm what many had suspected. The host and producers had planned the ambush from the start. They deliberately structured the interview to provoke Clint, baiting him into an emotional reaction. They coordinated audience reactions, instructing certain crowd members to laugh, jeer, and cheer at specific moments to manipulate the energy in the room. They even planted leading questions, with the goal of painting Clint as outdated and out of touch. The emails aren't just bad, they're a smoking gun. Screenshots leaked to the press, showing direct instructions from senior producers. Make sure he gets flustered. Push him on his wife. It's his weak spot. If he gets too comfortable, pivot to the old Hollywood masculinity angle. We need him looking defensive. Don't let him control the conversation. Cut him off, if necessary. The revelations hit like an earthquake. Journalists start digging deeper. More sources come forward, confirming the show has done this before to other guests. Former employees speak out. They reveal that the network has a long history of manipulating interviews to create viral controversy at the expense of their guests. Clint's legal team expands the lawsuit. Now they aren't just targeting the host. They're going after the entire network. Meanwhile, the network is in full-blown crisis mode. Stock prices tumble. Investors panic as sponsors continue to pull out. Executives hold emergency meetings to determine whether the host can be saved or if they need a scapegoat. The show goes on hiatus indefinitely, an industry term that often means cancellation is imminent. Then comes the final bombshell. A leaked audio recording surfaces. This time, it's not just emails, it's an off-the-record conversation between the host and the executive producer, recorded days before Clint's interview. In the audio, the host is heard mocking Clint behind the scenes. This guy still thinks he's in some old western where he's the hero. He's going to come in here thinking we're going to have a respectful discussion. Watch how fast we pull the rug out from under him. Then, the most damning line of all. If he walks out of here looking bad, we win. If he fights back and loses his temper, we win. Either way, we own the story. The reaction is instant. The internet erupts again. The hashtag number sign, rigged media, trends worldwide. Political commentators across the spectrum call it a textbook example of media corruption. Even rival networks start distancing themselves, calling the host's actions unethical and unacceptable. Calls for accountability grow louder. Viewers, celebrities, and journalists demand the host resign immediately. By this point, Clint Eastwood doesn't even have to say a word. His case is airtight. The lawsuit, stronger than ever. And the show, it's already dead. The fallout is unstoppable. The network, once untouchable, is now scrambling to contain the damage. The leaked emails, the audio recording, the overwhelming public backlash. It's all too much. Advertisers are gone. Sponsors have distanced themselves, and now even their most loyal viewers are questioning everything. Executives hold emergency meetings, desperately searching for a way out, but there isn't one. The show that once prided itself on taking down its guests has now been exposed as nothing more than a manipulative, agenda-driven spectacle. Days later, the official announcement comes. The show is being pulled off the air indefinitely. The host, once so smug and condescending, has been suspended pending an internal investigation. But everyone knows what that really means. They aren't coming back. Their career, built on ambush tactics and deception, has crumbled in an instant. As for Clint Eastwood, he doesn't need to celebrate. His victory is already evident. His calm, composed response during the interview followed by the undeniable evidence of a setup, has only solidified his reputation as a man of integrity. His name is trending, not because he was taken down, but because he stood tall against the corruption and won. Interviews flood in from news outlets wanting to hear his thoughts, but he keeps it simple. No grandstanding, no victory lap, just a quiet confidence that speaks louder than any headline. The lawsuit moves forward, and the network is forced to settle for an undisclosed but massive sum. The legal victory sends shockwaves through the industry, setting a precedent that manipulative media tactics won't go unchecked anymore. More former guests of the show come forward, revealing similar setups, and the network's credibility is in ruins. No amount of damage control can fix what's been exposed. Meanwhile, the cultural impact is undeniable. Social media is still ablaze with discussions about media bias, manipulation, and the importance of integrity in journalism. The hashtag number signed Justice for Clint continues to trend, and commentators from all sides acknowledge that this was a moment that changed everything. Clint doesn't just walk away unscathed, he walks away more respected than ever. His words during the interview, his refusal to be rattled, and his measured but decisive response in the aftermath have only strengthened his legend. His legacy remains intact, and in a world that often seeks to tear down icons, he's proven that the truth still has power. As the dust settles, one thing is clear. The people have spoken, and they won't be fooled again. If you care about the truth, share this video.